Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we developed one small application to understand how to develop classes with a loosely coupling, how one Java class can communicate with another Java class. So how many ways one Java class can communicate with another Java class? Two ways. What are those two ways? One is by using inheritance, another one is by using composition. If I go for inheritance or composition, what is the problem? The classes will be tightly coupled. I want my classes to be loosely coupled. How to achieve loosely coupling? By using interfaces. Now here, car wants to talk to engine. Engine is a interface. For that interface, there are multiple implementation classes are available. My car should be able to talk to any engine without modifying the code. Now, car is referring to engine interface. That interface variable I'm initializing through constructor. So can I say we are doing dependency injection? Yes. What is a dependency injection? What is dependency injection? The process of injecting dependent object into target object using target class variable or target class setter method or target class constructor is called as dependency injection. How many ways we can perform the dependency injection? In three ways we can perform dependency injection. What are those? Field injection, setter injection, and constructor injection. Field injection means we are going to perform by using variable. Field injection will perform by using variable. Setter injection will perform by using setter method. Constructor injection will perform by using constructor. Constructor injection we will perform by using constructor. Variable injection, setter method injection, and constructor injection. Now, I want to develop one more application based on loosely coupling. Requirement: develop an application to perform bill payments. Right? So, develop one application to perform bill payment. Requirement: develop an application to perform bill payment. Application should support for multiple payment options. It should support multiple payment options. Example: debit card, credit card, Sodexo, and MX also, and MX payments like this. So our application should support for multiple payments. Now, I want to develop this project with loosely coupling. Develop an application to perform bill payment. It should support for multiple payment options. Debit card payment, credit card payment, Sodexo payment, and MX payment also we should support in our application. So now, we need to develop this application with interfaces or without interfaces? If I develop this application without interfaces, what will happen? If I develop this application without interface, then the classes will become tightly coupled. So tightly coupling is recommended or tightly coupling is not recommended? Tightly coupling is not recommended. We need to develop the classes always with the loosely coupling. So now, in order to develop this project, first I am going to create one interface called iPayment. I'm going to create one interface called iPayment. So what we are going to do in the interface? Abstract methods. So here I'm going to write a method called process payment. Now this method will take some parameters. So I'm going to write a interface with a method called process payment. Now, what are the payment options we want to support in our project? Those classes should implement this interface. So iPayment is an interface. In that I'm taking a process payment. So here debit card payment I want to support, and credit card payment I want to support. Sodexo payment also I want to support. MX card payment also I want to support. right? So like this, I'm taking multiple classes. So these classes are going to implement the interface. Debit card payment, credit card payment, Sodexo payment, and MX payment is available. All these classes are called as implementation classes for the interface. So one interface can have any number of implementations. I'm taking payment interface. In the payment interface, I'm having process payment method. Process payment method is having a logic to implement billing operation. So debit card payment class implementing the interface, credit card class is implementing, Sodexo is implementing, MX also implementing. So now here I'm going to create one more class called payment service. I'm writing a class called payment service. Right here, I'm writing a method called do payment. I'm writing a method called do payment. This method will take some parameters. Do payment will be available. So do payment method should talk to payment classes. So am I going to talk to the payment classes directly? My service class will talk to the payment classes directly, or my service class will talk to the interfaces? Now, if do payment method talk to debit card class directly, what is the problem? Tightly coupling. So if I talk to any class directly, then it is called as a tightly coupling. My classes should not talk to the implementation classes. My classes should talk to interface. If my class is talking to interface, what is the advantage? Loosely coupling. So here I'm going to create a variable for the interface, payment. Now, what is this payment? What is the data type of the payment? What is a payment? Payment is a variable. What is the data type of the variable? Data type of the variable is a payment. So what value I can store into that variable? What value I can store into variable? Implementation class object. Payment is a variable that is belongs to a interface. So interface reference variable I'm creating. Interface reference variable can hold any implementation class object. How many implementation classes I'm taking? 4 implementation class objects I'm taking. Any object we can store into that variable which is implementing that class. Now tomorrow, if I make any change to the Sodex card payment, will it affect on the payment service? Will not affect on the payment service? Will not affect on the payment service, because payment service is not directly talking to Sodexo. Payment service is talking to interface. Now, my payment service is tightly coupled with the payment options. My payment service is loosely coupled with the payment options. My payment service is loosely coupled with the payment option. Can we develop this project now? Yep, right. So here in this project, which is the target for us? Which is the dependent for the target? Can I call payment service is our target? Can I call payment service is our target? Yes, these are dependents. All these classes are comes under dependent classes. These classes we can call as dependents. Dependent classes. So I have one target class and multiple dependent classes are available. I can use any dependent class and I can inject into interface variable. My payment service is loosely coupled with the payment options. Right. Now I want to create a project. So tell me which class I need to create first. Here or here? So I need to ask all the developers to follow some rules. So now one developer working on the debit card payment, another developer working on the credit card payment, other developer working on the Sodexo, some other developer working on the MX. Everybody can choose their own methods, or they have to follow interface methods. They have to follow interface methods. So what I need to create first in the project? I need to create interface first in the project. Now, let me create a project here. File, new, normal Java project. I'm not using Spring now. I'm going for normal Java project. 0 to payment application. Payment application, click on next, click on finish. It is a normal standalone Java project. Good. Now, let us create one interface first. New interface. You can give any name for the interface. I'm giving the package name in.ashok.it. Payment is iPayment. iPayment. In the iPayment, I'm taking a method called process payment. Public boolean process payment. Process payment. Now double bill amount. Double bill amount I'm taking. Right? So this is the abstract method. Implementation will be different based on the card we are using. Debit card payment will have some logic. Credit card payment will have some logic. I don't know what is the logic. I'm just defining a method here. I'm creating an interface with a name called iPayment. In the interface, I have a method called process payment. To process the payment, it is expecting bill amount. Perfect. Now, let me implement this interface. One interface can be implemented by any number of classes. Now, see the diagram. iPayment interface is created. For this interface, I want to create the implementation classes. Now, let me create the IMPL classes. Here, I'm taking first one as debit card payment. First class is the debit card payment. This debit card payment class is implementing, it is implements iPayment. Implements iPayment. What is the meaning of implementing an interface? Overriding the abstract method. Overriding the abstract method. Process payment method is available. Now here, I'm going to take system.out.println debit card payment is successful. Debit card payment processed. Just like this. Debit card payment processed. Here, in the real time, some business logic will be available to deduct the amount from the card. Now, debit card payment processed. Once the payment process is success, I'm returning true. That means it is successful transaction. So one class is implementing the interface. Now, let's go for a new another class. So here I'm taking it as credit card payment. Credit card payment is also implementing iPayment. Implements iPayment. Override that method. Process payment. System.out.println credit card payment is success. Credit card payment processed. Credit card payment processed. Credit card payment processed, return true. Credit card payment process, return true. Next one, Sodexo payment. Like this, one more IMPL class I'm taking. So here, the class name is Sodex payment. Sodexo payment. Right, click on finish. Let us implement a interface. Implements iPayment. Okay. Now, let me override that method. Sodexo payment process. System.out.println Sodexo payment. Sodexo payment processed. Something like this. This method also returning true. So true means successful transaction. False means failure transaction. So with this, I'm able to create a interface and I'm creating implementation classes. Now, tomorrow, when other developer joined in the project, he want to develop MX card payment logic. So is it confusing for the developer or easily he can develop that logic? Easily he can develop the logic. How he can develop the logic easily? Because he will check the debit card payment class. He will check the debit card payment. We are implementing an interface. Here logic will be available. Then he will go to credit card payment. He will check that we are implementing an interface. And he will go to Sodexo payment. We are implementing an interface. Tomorrow, when I want to support MX card payment, what I need to do? Do I need to modify the existing code or I need to create a new Java class? We simply need to create a new Java class by implementing an interface. That means My code is open for extension. My project is loosely coupled. Tomorrow I want to support one more card payment processing. Do I need to change any code in the existing logic? No. Simply I can create a new class to support MX card payment. That means our code is open for extension. We can add the new functionality easily without breaking the existing functionality. Right. So with this, I have created a interface and I have created implementation classes for the interface. Right. Now, let me create a target class. What is our target class? Payment service is our target class. Now, go and create a new class with a name called payment service. Create a new class, payment service. In the payment service, I need which card payment I want to do. Payment services should process the payment. So now, should I directly create the credit card object and call the method? Should I create the debit card object and call the method? If I directly create the credit card object and call the method, what is the problem? Tightly coupling. I want to loosely coupling. I want to develop the class with the loosely coupling. How to develop the class with loosely coupling? First, let us take a interface. What is that? iPayment payment. I'm taking a interface. What is the advantage of taking the interface? What is the advantage of taking the interface? Come on, guys. Interface reference variable can hold any implementation class object. Now, how to initialize this variable? Should I directly create the object new debit card payment? Should we create the object or we should not create the object? We should not create the object. Who want to use my class? They should create the object. They should pass the object. I need to provide the facility to inject the payment object into my class. How many ways I can provide the facility to inject payment object into our class? I can declare a public variable they can access. I can write a parameterized constructor. I can write a setter method. I want to go for a constructor. Can you tell me the constructor? Public. Can I use class name? Payment service. Now payment service. If I write a constructor like this, is there any use? There is no use. Why? By using this constructor, they cannot initialize this variable. Then what I need to do now? What I need to do now? I need to use parameterized constructor. What parameter I need to take? Come on. Why I need to take iPayment? Because it is a interface. Now, what object I can pass as a constructor parameter? What object I can pass as a constructor parameter? Any implementation class object we can pass. How to initialize the variable? This dot payment is equal to payment. So by using parameterized constructor, I'm initializing interface reference variable. By using parameterized constructor, I'm initializing interface reference variable. So through constructor, I am injecting the dependent object. So this is setter injection or constructor injection? Constructor injection. Can you tell me what is the constructor injection? What is the constructor injection, guys? The process of injecting dependent object into target object using target class constructor is called as constructor injection. Perfect. Now here I'm writing a method public void do payment. Public void do payment. So how much we need to do the payment? That we are taking as a parameter bill amount. Now this service layer method will talk to interface method. Now here I'm taking payment dot process payment. I will pass the bill amount. So when I pass the bill amount, what it is going to return now? What is the return type of that method? It is going to return Boolean value. So what is that? Status, right? If status is true, then bill printing, system.out.println printing receipt. Huh? Right. Now, so here, if it is true, then I'm saying that printing receipt. Suppose if the status is false, then what I will do? Payment declined. I will simply say that payment declined. Good. Printing receipt and payment decline. Look at our class. I have a class called payment service. I have a class called payment service. Yep. I have created a class with a name called payment service. Payment service should talk to dependent objects, but not directly. That's why I'm taking a interface. So now to inject the value to this variable, I'm writing a constructor. I'm writing a parameterized constructor. Who want to use my payment service class? They should inject the dependent object by using my constructor. Whatever the object they will pass as a parameter for the constructor, that will be initialized to current class variable. Now, here I am writing one more method to do the payment. So this is the actual method. It is the entry point for the payment. Do payment is the entry point for the payment. Now, whenever you call the do payment method, it is going to talk to payment.process payment. What is the payment? Payment is a variable. What is the data type? iPayment. So which object you will inject into this variable? That object class method it is going to call. If you inject a debit card object, debit card payment will happen. If you inject a credit card object, credit card payment will happen. If you inject Sodexo object, Sodexo payment will happen. Once the payment is completed, it will return the status. If status is true, receipt will be printed. If the status is false, payment declined. Now, so payment service is tightly coupled with the payment option. Payment service is loosely coupled with the payment option. Payment service is loosely coupled with the payment option. Are you able to follow this? Yep. Look at the diagram. Are we able to create interface implementation classes and a target class also? Right. Just look at this. iPayment is a interface. That interface is having a method. All the payment options are implementing that interface, overriding the method. My target class is a payment service class. Payment service class is using interface reference variable for loosely coupling. So my payment service class can use the debit card payment, credit card payment, Sodexo payment, Amex payment. If I want to use Amex card payment, do I need to make any changes to the payment service? Any changes are required for the payment service. In future, any changes are not required for the payment service. Not required because it is using a interface. Whichever object you want to inject, you inject that by using this constructor. Now I want to test this application. In order to test this application, I will create one app class. I will create one app class. App test will be created and I want to test my target class behavior. App class is a normal Java class with the main method. That Java class is going to call the target class method. Target class method will talk to the dependent class method. So in this diagram, which is the target and which is the dependent? Which is the target class and which is the dependent class? Payment service is a target class. Debit, credit, Sodex, Amex are the dependent objects. How I am injecting the dependent object into target object? Through constructor. Can I call it as a constructor injection? Yes. Now, let us test this behavior. Is this application working as expected or not? New class. I'm taking app class. Finish. So to test this application, I need a main method. Entry point of the JVM. I want to create the target class object and call the method. What is our target? Payment service. I'm creating payment service. So service is equal to new payment service. So can I create a object with zero param constructor? Can I create object with zero param constructor? No, I cannot create the object with the zero param constructor because my class is having parameterized constructor. What is the constructor parameter? Interface. So can I create the object for interface and call the constructor? Can I create the object for the interface and can I pass that object? I payment P is equal to new I payment. Can I cast that P as a parameter? Why no? Why no? We are using a interface. Can I create object for the interface? No, we cannot create object for the interface. Then what I need to do? I need to create the object for the implementation class. What is the implementation class? New debit card payment. New debit card payment. Now I am going to call service dot do payment. What is the bill amount? For example, 450 is the bill amount. Something like this. I'm taking something like this. I payment is equal to new debit card payment. Interface reference variable holding implementation class object. That implementation class object I'm injecting into target class by using constructor. Then I am calling target class method. Now what is the output? Which card payment will happen? I'm going for the do payment method. Can I debug this program? Right click, debug as Java application. No. Now my application started in the debug mode. What I am doing in the line number 7? Creating the object for which class? Debit card payment. Storing into a variable. Interface reference variable can hold any implementation object. F6. Now I am creating the object for target class. So that means the constructor is executing. When this constructor is executed, what will happen? Object will be created. Variable also will be initialized. So once this constructor execution is completed, what value will be stored into this variable? What value will be stored into this variable? Debit card object. This constructor I am calling by passing debit card payment object. So debit card payment object will be stored to this variable. That value I am storing into current class variable. Once the constructor execution is completed, this variable will hold debit card payment object. Now F6. I am calling the target class method. I want to go inside that method. F5. Now see, payment variable holding which class object? Debit card object. Who injected that debit card object into this variable? Constructor. Can I say dependency injection happened? What is a dependency injection? The process of injecting dependent object into target object is called dependency injection. Now payment.process payment. This method will call which class method? This line will call which class method? Is it going to call debit card process payment method? Because there are multiple classes are implementing the interface. Interface variable holding which class object? Debit card payment. So in this line, which class method will be called? Debit card method will be called. See here, the control came to debit card method. Now debit card payment process come back. So status is true. If the status is true, printing the receipt. Application executed. Debit card payment process and printing the receipt. Now I want to change from debit card to credit card. Should I modify the target class? Modifications required for the target class. Modification not required for the target class. Modification not required for the target class because it is loosely coupled. So if I want to modify the payment, then I need to change my test class. So where I am testing my project by using main method. Instead of debit card, I will use credit card payment. That's it. I modified the object. Now run as Java application. Which card payment happened? Credit card. So am I able to communicate from one class method to another class method with loosely coupling? Yes, we are able to communicate from one class method to another class method with loosely coupling, right? So here we are achieving that loosely coupling by using interface concept. If interface is not available, One class should directly create the object of the another class. Then the classes will become tightly coupled. What is the problem if I go for tightly coupling? Maintenance problem will be available. Maintenance problem will be available. Now, with this knowledge, let's understand here my Java application wants to communicate with the database. Okay, guys, my Java application want to communicate with a database. So if my Java application directly use Oracle driver, then what is the problem? If Java application communicate with the Oracle driver directly, what is the problem? My Java application is tightly coupled with only Oracle driver. So that's why Java application will communicate with Oracle driver. Java application will communicate with the driver interface. Java application will communicate with the driver interface. So that a driver interface provided by JDBC. Now, for that driver interface, Oracle provided implementation, which is called as Oracle driver. MySQL provided the implementation, that is MySQL driver. DB2 driver is also available. So now, who provided these drivers? Drivers provided by Java or drivers not provided by Java? Not provided by Java. Java provided what? Driver as a interface. So Java application will talk to driver interface, and for this driver, Oracle driver available, MySQL driver available, DB2 driver is also available. So Java is tightly coupled with any database. Java is loosely coupled with the databases. Java is loosely coupled with the databases. If you add Oracle driver to the build path, Java can communicate with the Oracle database. If you add MySQL driver to the build path, it will talk to MySQL database. If you add DB driver to the build path, it will talk to DB2 database. So how Java is able to communicate with multiple databases? Because of the interface. So Java is using interfaces. For the interface, implementation classes are available. If you want to communicate with Oracle database, Oracle driver you will add. If you want to communicate with MySQL, MySQL driver you will add. So who provided methods for the drivers? JDBC interfaces provided. Those methods are implemented by drivers, right? Every database vendor having their own driver. All the database drivers will follow some rules which are given by JDBC driver. JDBC driver is an interface. That interface is implemented by driver classes. Oracle driver is implementing JDBC driver. MySQL driver implementing JDBC driver. DB2 driver implementing JDBC driver. Java is using multiple databases because Java is loosely coupled with the databases. I may use Oracle database in my project. Is it mandatory everybody should use only Oracle? Some companies may go for MySQL. Some companies may go for DB2. Some companies may go for SQL Server. Now do you understand why Java provided interfaces? So interfaces are used to decide some common rules for several classes. So if you have your own database, you can implement the JDBC driver. Can you write your own methods or driver methods you have to override? Driver methods only you have to override. That is mandatory. Now here I can create multiple payment options. Any payment option that you want to support, that should implement the iPayment interface. So now my payment service class will talk to iPayment. My payment service can use any payment. My payment service is loosely coupled with the payment option. If you want to change from one payment to another payment, you can directly change in the test class. You need to change your dependency injection logic. That's it. Do I need to modify my target class? Do I need to modify my dependent class? No. Where the change is required? In the test class where we are performing the dependency injection. What type of dependency injection I am performing? Constructor injection. I want to perform setter injection. How to do that? I want to perform setter injection. How to do that? By writing a setter method. Can you tell me the setter method to perform setter injection? Public void set. For which variable we are writing setter method? Payment variable. Set payment. What is the parameter? I payment payment. I payment payment. This dot payment is equal to payment. How many ways I can inject the dependent into target now? Here in this class, 2 ways. In this class, we can do in 2 ways. Either by using constructor or by using setter. By using constructor or by using setter. Okay, guys. Now here I will write 0 param constructor and I will write the parameterized constructor also. Here, why 0 parameter constructor? To create the object without passing any parameter. Now let me go for this payment service. Let me comment this line. Now I will go for payment service. Payment service is equal to new payment service. Right. Now I will do service dot set payment as P. Okay. So what injection I am performing now? What injection I am performing now? Setter injection. How can you say I am performing setter injection? Here I am creating target class object. Then I am creating dependent class object. I am injecting the dependent object into target object through target class setter method. Now if I execute this method, which payment will happen? Which payment will happen with this logic? Credit card payment. How I am injecting the credit card object into payment service? How I am injecting the credit card payment into payment service? Through constructor or through setter? Setter. It is called as setter injection. Right click, run as Java application. Credit card payment happened. Okay, let us take a scenario. I will do both setter and constructor. Okay, guys, I will do both setter and constructor. If I do both setter and constructor, then what will happen? If I do both setter and constructor, then what will happen? Come on. I want to perform both setter injection as well as constructor injection. Okay. In the constructor injection, I'm doing 1 minute. I payment to P1 is equal to credit card payment. I payment to PT is equal to debit card payment. Debit card payment. Okay. In the constructor injection, I'm injecting P1. In the setter injection, I'm injecting P2. Now I am calling payment service, that is a PS. Payment service is a PS. Okay. So setter injection is there, constructor injection is there. Now I am doing PS dot to do payment, bill amount. Now tell me which payment will happen. This is setter injection. Sorry, this is constructor injection. If you apply your common sense, then you can answer. Constructor injection and setter injection. No need to give the answer immediately. Just observe the code for 2 minutes. Think about it and tell me which payment will happen. In the constructor injection, I'm injecting credit card payment. In the setter injection, I'm injecting the debit card payment. So when I call the do payment method, it will do the payment through credit card or it will do the payment through debit card. I want you to identify. Analyze code is already there. Just to tell me which payment will happen, why it will happen with that payment. I want answer and I want explanation also. Think, take 1 minute of time. दिमाग लगा के सोचो। Online people, think it and tell me. Online students in the Zoom, tell me which payment will happen in this application. Why only that payment will happen? Setter injection. Both will happen. Constructor injection will happen. Simple example. See here. I have a class, public class demo. Okay. In this, there is a variable called int age. Let me take that public class user. User class is having a variable called age variable. Now I'm taking public user into age. Public user into age. This dot age is equal to age. Can I say this is a constructor? Yes. Now here I'm going for public set public void set age int age. This dot age is equal to age. Now here I want to print that age. Okay. So here let me take a main method. I'm having a main method. Now I am creating user u is equal to new user of 10. Then u dot set age is equal to 20. Then system dot out dot println of age. What is the value? 10 or 20? If you can answer this question, then you can answer my payment question also. Both are same. So here I have a variable. That variable I'm initializing through the constructor. That variable I'm initializing through the setter also. Here I am doing initialization with the constructor. Here I am doing initialization with the setter. So can I say this is a constructor injection for the variable? So I'm initializing the value to the variable through constructor. So this is called constructor injection. I'm initializing the variable through setter. This is called setter injection. For the same variable, I'm doing the constructor injection and I'm doing the setter injection. Finally, I am printing the variable. Output is 10 or output is 20. 20. Why? First time when I create this object, so I'm passing 10. The 10 will be stored to this variable. Then it will store the 10 into age variable when the constructor injection happen. When the constructor injection happen, 10 value will be stored to the variable. When I call the setter method, then what is happening? I'm passing 20. It will reinitialize the variable with the 20. So finally, which value will be available? 20 will be available. So what is the conclusion? Setter injection will override the constructor injection value. So if you do both constructor injection and setter injection, the result will be the constructor injection only. Now come back to our program. Now through constructor injection, I am injecting credit card object. Through setter injection, I am injecting debit card object. P1 credit card object injecting to the constructor. P2 debit card payment injecting through the setter. So when the constructor is executed, debit card object will be stored to this variable. Now immediately I'm doing the setter injection. When I do the setter injection, debit card payment will be stored into the same variable. So finally, when I call the do payment method, this variable will contain the first initialization object or second initialization object? Second initialization object. So which payment will happen? debit card payment will happen. What is the conclusion? If you perform both to setter and constructor, then setter will override the constructor value, because first constructor will be executed. It is storing some value to the variable. After that, setter method reinitializing the same variable. So final value will be setter injection value. Now, when I execute this program, which payment will happen? Debit card payment is happening. Are you guys clear? So what is the answer? Debit card payment. What is the explanation? First debit card injection, first that constructor injection will happen, then setter injection will happen. So that constructor injection, setter injection initializing the same variable. So setter injection will override the value of the constructor injection. This is interview question. They will ask that I have a variable. I'm doing both the constructor injection and setter injection. What will be the output? Setter injection value will be the output, because first constructor will execute, then setter will execute. Setter will reinitialize the variable with the another value. So are you clear? Now run this, run as Java application. Debit card payment process is happened. Through constructor, I injected credit card. Through setter, I injected the debit card. Finally, which payment is happening? Debit card payment is happening. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Can we maintain that note? So, right. Yeah. Let me, yeah, that application, you can develop that, right? Should I give the code or no need to give the code? No need to give the code, right? Good. So, what will happen when we do both the setter and constructor on the single variable? What will happen when we perform both constructor and setter injections on same variable? Interview question, guys. Tell me, what is the answer? What is the answer? Setter injection will happen first. First setter injection will happen. First constructor injection will happen. First constructor injection will happen. Then it will initialize the variable. Then it will initialize the variable. Then constructor inject, then setter injection will happen. Then setter injection will happen, and it will reinitialize the same variable. So final value will be, setter injection value. Then final value will be setter injection value. How can we say that? Setter injection will override constructor injection. Setter injection will override constructor injection. Are you clear with this point? Yep, right. So are you able to understand what is the dependency injection? What is the constructor injection? What is setter injection? Yes, tell me. What is dependency injection? The process of injecting the dependent object into target object. How many ways we can perform? 3 ways: constructor, setter, and field injection. So can I perform both the setter and constructor on the single variable? Yes. Then what will happen? Setter injection will override the constructor injection. So here what will be the output? 20 will be the output. Same concept is applicable for our example also. Good. So with this, we are able to develop 2 applications with loosely coupling. How we are able to achieve the loosely coupling? By using interfaces. What is the purpose of interfaces? To specify the methods that we should implement in our project. Interfaces are used to specify the methods that we should use in our project. Perfect. Now, who is performing dependency injection in our project? Now, I am creating the object. I am injecting the object, right? So, programmer is performing the dependency injection. So now, I don't want to perform the dependency injection. I don't want to perform the dependency injection. I want IOC container to perform the dependency injection. Are you able to follow me? Now, here it is a normal Java application. I am creating the classes and I am creating the objects. I am injecting one class object into another class. But if you go for Spring Framework, you no need to create the object. You no need to inject that object. Who will take care of the dependency injection? IOC container. Now, let's understand what is IOC. What is IOC? IOC stands for inversion of control. What is IOC, guys? IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC, full form, inversion of control. So what is this IOC? IOC is a principle, or I can say IOC is a concept. IOC is a concept which is used to manage and collaborate classes available in the application. I have so many classes in my project. One class should talk to another class with loosely coupling. One class should be able to talk to another class with loosely coupling. So how to create the objects, how to inject one class object into another class object. Here, whatever the task I am doing programmatically, whatever the 2 lines of code I am writing to create the target object and a dependent object and inject the dependent object into target, that the task can done by IOC container. IOC stands for inversion of control. Let me write a definition. IOC is a principle. IOC is a principle which is used to manage and collaborate, dependencies among the objects in the application. Are you guys getting my point? What is the definition of the IOC? IOC is a principle which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in the application. So I have multiple classes in the project. In the real time, one project will be available or multiple projects will be available. One project will be available in the real time or multiple projects will be available in the real time. Multiple projects will be available in the real time. For example, I have a class called user DAO and I have a class called report DAO and I have a class called admin DAO. Right. So like this, multiple DAO classes available, and here I have a class called user service and I have a class called report service and I have a class called admin service. And here I have a class called user servlet and I have a class called report servlet and a class called report servlet and admin servlet. Like this, multiple classes are available. User servlet class methods should talk to user service. User service method should talk to user DAO. User servlet, user service, user DAO. Report DAO, report service, report servlet. Admin DAO, admin service, admin servlet. For all these things, user interface will be available. This is my UI. This is my UI. User interface will be available. When user send a request from the UI, that request will go to servlet. Servlet should talk to service. Service should talk to DAO. DAO should talk to database, right? So from the UI, request can come to this servlet, request can come to this servlet, and request can come to this servlet. This servlet should call user service method, and the user service method should talk to user DAO method. Now, report servlet should talk to report service method. Report service method should talk to report DAO method. And admin servlet should talk to admin service class. Admin service class should talk to admin DAO method. Okay. So that means here user servlet should access user service. That means User service object should be injected into user servlet. User DAO object should be injected into user service. Are you guys getting my point? Servlet should talk to service method. So servlet should have the service object. Service object should be injected into servlet. Servlet will call the service method. Service method will call the DAO method. That means we need to do the reverse operation. DAO object should be injected into service. Service object should be injected into servlet. Then servlet can call the service method. Service method can call the DAO method. Are you getting my point? So you will click on the login button. Request will go to login servlet. Login servlet should call login service. If login servlet should call the login service, login servlet should have the object of the login service. Getting my point? Report servlet should call the report service method. Report service object should be injected into report servlet. Report DAO object should be injected into report service. Admin DAO object should be injected into admin service. Admin service object should be injected into admin servlet. Are you guys getting my point? So here, my class want to access another class method. That another class object should available in my class. Then only I can call that method. Are you able to follow me? So here, dependency injection we will perform for only one class, or we need to perform for every class in the project. So there are 9 classes available here. Simple example. So one, report functionality, user functionality, admin functionality. For that I have taken 9 classes. When user click on report button, it will go to report servlet. What report servlet should do? It should talk to report service. How report servlet can talk to report service? Report service object should be available in the report servlet. Now here, my payment service is talking to debit card payment. How payment service is talking to debit card payment? Debit card payment object is injected to payment service. Then payment service can talk to debit card payment. If my report servlet should talk to report service object should be injected to report servlet. How many ways one class object I can inject into another class? 3 ways. Variable injection, setter injection, constructor injection. Now, so report service object injected to report servlet. What about report service? Report service should call which method? DAO method to communicate with the database. So then what I need to do, if I want to call DAO method in the service method, what I need to do? Report DAO object should be injected to report service. Are you guys getting the clarity? Any confusion? So class A wants to talk to class B. Then class B object should be injected to class A. Report service should talk to report DAO. That means report DAO object should be injected to report service. Report service method should be called by report servlet. Then report service object should be injected to report servlet. Car should talk to engine. Then what I need to do? Car should talk to engine. Then what I need to do? Engine object should be injected to car. Are you getting my point? Right. So here, in order to manage dependencies among the objects in the application, we are going for which concept? We are going for IOC. What is the full form of IOC? IOC stands for inversion of control. What is the definition of the IOC? IOC is a principle which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in the application. Managing nothing but creating the objects. Collaboration nothing but injecting the objects. Right. So here I should not create the object for all these classes. IOC container should create the object for the 9 classes. IOC container should inject one class object into another class object. That is called managing and collaborating. Managing means create the object. Collaborate means inject one class object into another class object. Why we should inject one class object into another class object? Why we should inject one class object into another class object? to call one class method from the another class. Servlet method will call the service method. Service method will call the DAO method. DAO object should be injected to service. Service object should be injected to servlet. So in the real time, complete project development will happen like this. So to take the request, to give the response, servlet will be available. In future, instead of calling this as a servlet, we are going to call it as a controller. In the advanced Java, we used servlet. In the framework, we will use the controller. Controller is equal to servlet. It will take the request, it will give the response. What is the service? Service will contain the business logic, sending the email, send the OTP, generate the Excel report, generate the PDF report. That project business logic will be available in the service. What is the DAO? DAO will contain database logic. DAO method will be called by service method. Service method will be called by controller method. Are you guys getting my point? Good. So here we don't want to create the objects. We don't want to inject the objects manually. We need to take the help of IOC container. IOC container will create the object. IOC container will manage the dependencies among the objects. So what is IOC? Inversion of control. It is a principle which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in the application. IOC container will take our Java classes, will perform the dependency injection, will give the classes to use. It will prepare the objects. It will manage the dependencies. It will make our application ready to execute. So now in Spring, IOC is responsible for dependency injection. Programmer is responsible. IOC is responsible. Programmer is responsible for dependency injection. IOC is responsible for dependency injection. IOC is responsible for dependency injection. What is the dependency injection? Creating the object and injecting the target object into dependent object into target object is called as dependency injection. So as of now, in the car application, in the payment application, I created the object, I performed the dependency injection. From now onwards, who is responsible to perform the dependency injection? IOC. In the interview, some people will ask you a question. What is the difference between IOC container and dependency injection? Is it a valid question? What is the difference between IOC container and dependent? So many people will ask that question in the interview. Then tell them that the question itself is wrong. We cannot compare IOC and DI, right? IOC is performing the DI. How can we compare that? IOC is one class. That class will create the objects for our classes and that class will manage the dependencies for our classes. IOC, DI both are not separate. IOC is performing the DI. IOC is the principal which is responsible to perform dependency injection. So that we no need to create the object. Our classes will be loosely coupled. Are you getting my point? Now, here, sir, IOC we understood theoretically, dependency injection we understood practically, right? Dependency injection we understood. Now, I want IOC container to perform dependency injection. So what I need to do is assume that this is IOC container. Assume that this is a IOC container. IOC. Good. How this IOC will understand which classes it has to manage. In my project, there are 5 classes available, 1 interface is available. How IOC will understand which is the target, which is the dependent? Can IOC understand or IOC cannot understand? IOC can understand or IOC cannot understand? IOC cannot understand because I know that car is dependent on the engine. I know that payment service is dependent on the debit card payment, credit card payment, Sodexo payment. For IOC, all are Java classes only. It cannot identify which is a target class and which is dependent class. So what we need to do is, for this IOC container, we need to give Java classes as input. For IOC container, we should provide our Java classes as input. Now, if I just give the Java classes, IOC cannot do anything. It will consider everything as a Java class. Along with the Java class, we need to provide some configuration as a input. What I need to do, guys? Along with the Java classes, I need to provide some configuration as a input. So this configuration we can do in two ways. Either we can do by using XML or we can do by using annotation. Either you can do XML based configuration or you can do annotation based configuration. So what is the meaning of that configuration? That configuration is used to tell IOC, hey IOC, these are my classes. These classes you have to manage. In these classes, this is a target class. This is a dependent class. You inject this dependent into this target through constructor, through setter. So how dependency injection should perform? What dependency injection should perform? We need to write in the configuration. That the configuration we should give as a input for the IOC container. Based on the configuration, IOC container will perform the dependency injection and IOC container will provide Spring beans. What it is going to provide, guys? Spring beans. What is the input we are giving for the IOC? We are giving two inputs for the IOC. One is Java class which it has to manage and how it has to manage the Java classes. Java classes we are giving as an input and the configuration also we are giving as an input for the IOC. Based on the configuration, IOC will perform the dependency injection. IOC will manage our classes. IOC will create the object. IOC will perform the dependency injection. It will provide Spring Bean class. What is a Spring Bean? The class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean class. Are you getting my point? So what is IOC? What is IOC? IOC. What is IOC? IOC is a principal which is responsible to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in the application. IOC is a principal which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in the application. So IOC is responsible for which action? Dependency injection. IOC will perform the dependency injection blindly or it is expecting some input from the programmer. It is expecting some input from the programmer. What input it is expecting from the programmer? One is Java class and the second one is the configuration. How many ways we can do that configuration? We can do that configuration in the two ways. What are the two ways? One is XML configuration. Another one is annotation configuration. This is the problem in the Spring framework. Now understand. When you develop a project by using only Spring, this configuration should be taken care by the programmer. Programmer is responsible to take care of the configuration. That configuration only for my project or it is for every project? I am developing Java project with the Spring. I will use IOC. You are developing Java project with the Spring. You will use IOC. I should write configuration in my project. You should write the configuration in your project. Configurations are common for every project. That's why Spring people want to remove that configuration. That's why they released Springboot. If you go for Springboot, you no need to write this configuration also. Springboot will take care of the configuration. If you go for the Spring framework, we need to write the configuration for the IOC. When you go for Spring Boot, auto configuration will be available. Why Spring Boot is most famous in the market? Because of less configuration. In the Spring, programmer should write the configuration. In the Spring Boot, auto configuration is available. After few years, Spring development team Rod Johnson realized that Spring is excellent framework. Lot of demand is there. Everybody using the Spring, but only one complaint. What is that one complaint? Configuration. Every company using Spring. Every project is developing by Spring, but configurations are common. Why can't we remove this configuration? Why can't we automate that configuration? That's where Spring Boot came into picture. By using Spring Boot, auto configuration we can use. As a programmer, we no need to write the configuration. Spring Boot will take care of the configuration. I want a server to run my application. You no need to do anything. Spring Boot will take care of that. I want to implement a security. You no need to write anything. Boot will take care of that. I want a connection pool. You no need to do anything. Boot will take care of that. That kind of auto configuration is available in the Spring Boot. That's why it is very famous in the market to develop real-time projects. Now you understand the difference between Spring and Spring Boot. Spring is used to develop Java-based application. Whatever you do by using Spring, same thing can be developed by using Spring Boot also. Sir, then what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? In the Spring, we need to write the configuration. In the Spring Boot, auto configuration is available. So if anybody asks, why are you using Spring Boot? Auto configuration. Programmer no need to do the configuration. Boot will provide auto configuration for us. Very less configurations we need to do in the Spring Boot. But in the Spring, lot of configuration we have to do it. In the Spring, configuration can be done in the two ways. One is XML configuration, another one is the annotation configuration. When you go for Spring Boot, XML support is not available. It is going to support only annotation. Completely advanced concept available in the Spring Boot. Are you getting my point? Yes, tell me. What is IOC? IOC is a principle which is managed to, which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the classes in the object. Why we are going for IOC? To perform dependency injection. IOC container can perform the dependency injection for our classes so that our classes will be loosely coupled. Now forget about Spring Boot. To understand Spring Boot, first you need to understand Spring. First we need to develop few applications by using Spring. Then you will understand what is the problem in the Spring. Then we will go for the Spring Boot. First, if you want to understand the main power of the, if I teach you Spring Boot, you may not feel that is interesting because you are not going to write anything because everything will be taken care by Spring Boot. First, you need to understand the problem. Then you will taste the beauty of the Spring Boot. First, we will develop some projects by using Spring with a lot of configuration. Then when we go for Spring Boot, you no need to do that configuration, but you will understand what is happening in the background. If I directly teach you Spring Boot, you will not understand the internals of that because everything is automated. Just like that, we can create an application in the Spring Boot, but internally, lot of code will execute. That code will be executed by Spring Framework. Perfect. Now here, this is the high-level architecture of our Spring IOC. IOC is going to take the Java classes as input and IOC will take the configuration as a input. What will be there in that configuration? What will be there in that configuration? What will be there in the configuration? Classes. Which classes should be managed by the IOC container and how to manage the classes. I will tell to IOC, hey IOC, car is a target. Diesel engine is a dependent. inject the diesel engine into car by using constructor injection. So here I need to specify what is my target class, what is my dependent class, and how to perform the dependency injection. I will write in the XML file. That XML file I will give as an input for the IOC container. Then IOC will load my classes. IOC will create the object. IOC will perform the dependency injection. Are you clear? Now, how to use that IOC? How to configure the classes in the configuration file? How to give that file as input for IOC? Good. Here, guys, in the Spring, we can start IOC container in two ways. We need the IOC container, right? For that IOC container, I should give my Java class as the input, and I need to give configuration file also as a input. First, I need to start that IOC container. We can start the IOC container in two ways, guys. In two ways, we can start that IOC container. Let me write that. So in Spring, IOC responsible for dependency injection. For IOC, we need to pass Java classes plus configuration as input. Configuration as input. Then IOC will perform DI and it will produce what it is going to produce. It will produce Spring Beans. What is a Spring Bean? The class which is managed by IOC. The class which is managed by IOC is called as Spring Bean. What is Spring Bean? The Java classes which are managing by IOC is called as Spring Bean. Are you guys getting my point? So the Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. What is input for the IOC? Java classes plus configuration we are giving as input for the IOC. IOC will manage the classes and will return Spring Beans. So that means ready-made classes will be available. We can execute them. So we can start the IOC in two ways. How to start IOC container? In the Spring, we are going to start the IOC container. But in the Spring Boot, automatically it will start. We no need to do that. So first let's understand the problem. How to start the IOC container? We can start it in two ways, guys. One is by using Bean Factory. Second one is by using application context. What are the ways available to start the IOC container? How many ways are available to start the IOC container? There are two ways available to start the IOC container. What are the two ways to start the IOC container? One is Bean Factory and the second one is application context. So this Bean Factory is outdated. Bean Factory is outdated. Now which one is most famous now? Application context, right? Application context is a interface. Application context is a interface. Bean Factory is also a interface. So in the framework, completely we are going to work with the interfaces. Why? For loosely coupling. For loosely in the JDBC, everything is an interface. In the Spring, everything is an interface. In the Spring Boot, everything is an interface. So we are going to use interfaces so that our classes will be loosely coupled. Can you tell me how many ways are there to start the IOC container? There are two ways available to start the IOC container. What are the two ways to start the IOC container? One is by using Bean Factory. Second one is by using application context. Out of these two ways, which one is the most recommended approach? Application context is recommended. Bean Factory is deprecated. Bean Factory is deprecated, outdated. We are going to use application context. Now, how to create the IOC container? Here, application context, context is equal to new class path XML application context. Now we are going to provide string XML file. Okay, guys. So this is the syntax to start the IOC container. This is a interface and this is the implementation class. It is expecting XML file as a input. What is that XML file? Configuration file. What will be there in the configuration file? Java class details, which is a target, which is dependent. That class information we will write in the XML file. That XML file we will give as an input for the IOC container. Once I will give that XML as input for the IOC, IOC will load the Java classes. IOC will perform the dependency injection. Then we can get the object and we can call the method. We just need to get the object and call the method. Who will create the object? Who will inject the object? IOC container. What is the syntax to create the IOC container? Application context. Context is equal to new class path XML application context. It is taking XML file as a input. So where this application context interface, these classes are available in the Spring framework. Now we need to create a project. For that project, we need to add the Spring libraries. We need to add the Spring library in our project. Then we can use Spring framework classes and interfaces to develop our project. Are you getting my point? Yes. Now we need to create a project. In that project, we need to add Spring libraries, Spring framework. Spring framework is released into market as a jar file. We need to download the jar file. We need to add to build path, right? How we are adding MySQL connector to the build path? How we are adding OJDBC jar file, Servlet API jar file, JSTL jar file, Hikari jar file. In the same way, we need to download Spring jar files. We need to add to the build path. But in the real time, anybody will download the jars and will add it, or they will go for build tool. Build tool. What is a build tool? Maven or Gradle. So we are going to create a project by using Maven or Gradle. For that Maven, I will tell download the Spring framework. Maven will download the jar file, will add it to my project. Are you getting my point? Yes, let us see how to create a Maven project, guys. In every IDE, Maven will be available by default. In every IDE, Maven will be available by default. File, new, here, click on other, select a option called Maven. Select an option called Maven. So I will tell you simple steps, right? Sir, we don't know Maven. No problem. In the Java project classes, the first tool I am going to explain is a Maven only. Just observe what are the steps that I am going to do. From tomorrow, project batch is starting morning at 9:30. Class will start at 9:30 a.m. Offline will be available. Online also will be available. Full stack people, everybody should attend that project class also. From tomorrow, morning 2 hours batting, evening 2 hours batting. Project batch and Springboot. 4 hours only class. Practice 10 hours. Hibernate 7:30 to 9. 9 to 9:30 breakfast. 9:30 to 11 o'clock. 9:30 to 11:30 project class will be available. Got it? You have to attend the project. That is the most important part. Good. Fine. Now, in the project, I am going to explain how to work with the Maven. The first tool that I am going to start in the project is Maven only. Now observe how to create a Maven project. See, file, new. What option I need to select, guys? What option I need to select? Maven project. Now here, I'm giving the name for the project, simple project. Just to select the option called simple project. Click on next. Group ID. Just give in.ashok.it. In.ashok.it. Right. Just in.ashok.it. Artifact ID 03 IOC application. What application we are creating? IOC application. Group ID in.ashok.it. Artifact ID IOC app. Sir, what is group ID? What is artifact ID? Forget about that. In another 3-4 days, you are going to understand Maven. Now simply click on finish. So with this, my Maven project is getting created. So with this, my Maven project is created. When the Maven project is created, form.xml file will come. So this is the Maven configuration file. In this Maven configuration file, we need to add dependencies. I want Spring Framework. I want Spring Framework. How to get the Spring Framework? I will go to mvnrepository.com. In the MVN repository, I will type Spring context. I will type the Spring context. I will search for the Spring context. I will get the Spring context and I will take the dependency. Let me go with the 5.3 now. Let me take this dependency. Let me add in the pom.xml. That's it. With this, Spring Framework will be downloaded to our project. It is downloading the Spring jar files. Can you see? Spring jar files are downloaded. Now, zoom it. Now, can you see here? Spring jar files are downloaded or not? Which jar is downloaded? Spring AOP jar is downloaded. Spring beans, Spring context, Spring core, Spring expression, Spring JCL. Am I downloading the jar files? Maven is downloading the jar files. Maven is downloading the jar files. Now, I want to develop the project by using Spring. So, what I have done? So, creating Spring project. Creating Spring project. So, how I am creating the Spring project, guys? Open our IDE. Which IDE? Spring Tool Suite. Open STS IDE. Create Maven project. Create Maven project. Create Maven project. Open pom.xml. Open pom.xml file and add below dependency. So here I'm giving the dependency. You just need to add the dependency in the pom.xml. Then it will download the Spring libraries. Whatever the libraries that are required, those libraries it is going to download. Are you getting my point? So it is going to download Spring libraries which are required for the project. So can you guys do up to this? So tomorrow I will tell you how to work with that IOC container, how to perform the dependency injection. You should develop that second payment application with loosely coupling, and you should be able to create a project and add the Spring dependency. After adding the Spring dependency, verify that jar files are added or not. So if you see in the Maven project, the jar files are added or not, you should be able to see that. So I want everybody to create this first project before coming to tomorrow's class. Creating first Spring project. Creating first Spring project. Open STS IDE and create Maven project. Open pom.xml file and add the below dependency. After adding the dependency, verify. After adding dependency, verify project Maven dependencies folder. Maven dependencies folder, jars should be displayed. It has to download the Spring jar files and it has to add the jar files to the project build path. Once the jars are added to the project build path, now I can create the IOC container and I can call the methods. I can perform the dependency injection. Can you guys do this? Yes. Any questions, anyone? So what we understood in the today's session? What we understood in the today's session? What is IOC container? What is dependency injection? Can you tell me what is IOC? IOC is a principle which is used to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects, right? So IOC is responsible to perform the dependency injection. How many ways we can start the IOC? 2 ways. One is by using Bean Factory, another one is by using application context. Which one is recommended? Application context is recommended. So what is input for the IOC? Java classes and configuration. How many ways we can do the configuration? Two ways. One is XML, another one is annotation. If I go for Spring Boot, only annotations, right? What is a Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container, that is called as a Spring Bean. So I want to create the Spring application. By using Spring Tool Suite, you can create the project. And in that project, we have a pom.xml. In the pom.xml, you need to add this dependency. After adding the dependency, verify project Maven dependencies folder. Jar files should be available. Are you clear? Good. Thank you, guys. Yeah, guys, notes is uploading to the mobile app. We have uploaded that, right? So today we have given portal access for the backup videos also. Tomorrow the Zoom link will change for online people, and for offline people you have to come for offline. Zoom link will not be available for you. So the class notes will be uploaded to the portal, right? Backup videos also will be given by tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah. Online students, so can you hear me? Yeah. So you guys need to get the new Zoom link to attend the classes from tomorrow. The Zoom link will be updated, guys. Tomorrow class will be there on the new Zoom link. You need to complete your enrollment process. So to complete your enrollment process, we have given the payment details in the mobile app class notes. So complete your enrollment process and send the details to the mail. Course fees is 8,000 for live classes and course fees is 10,000 with the backup videos. Right? Installments are not available. So payment details we are already uploaded, guys. Payment details we are already given in the class notes. In the mobile app, you can do that. You guys can leave. Yeah, payment details we have already given in the mobile app. Or else you can do Google Pay or Phone Pay. Google, 1 minute. Sir. Send your payment details to this mail ID, ashokitpayments@gmail.com. So course fees is 8,000 for live classes. For backup videos, it is 10,000. Tomorrow class will be on the new Zoom link. Thank you. Yeah, guys. The payment completed people, send your details to the EMI option not available. Installments are not available. It is one-time payment. Course fees is 8,000 for live classes. Course fees is 10,000 with the backup videos. Course code is 29 SBMS. Course code is 29 SBMS. Yeah. The people who don't have the access, just stay back. I will show you the payment details for completing that. అట్లా రాయలేరు కదా, సెటర్ మెథడ్ రాయాలంటే ఫస్ట్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ కావాలి, మీకు ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేయాలి కదా. Yep. Guys, are you able to access the payment details? Project batch will start from tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Yes, guys, take these payment details. Course fees is 8,000 for live classes, 10,000 with the backup videos. Take the screenshot and complete the payment to attend the classes from tomorrow. Tomorrow class will be there on the new Zoom link. Tomorrow class will be there on the new Zoom link. Class timings will be same, 5 to 7 daily. Class timings are not going to change. Class timings will not change. Timings will be daily, 5 to 7 p.m. People who are interested, take the screenshot and complete your payment process. ठीक है सर, मैं कल बात करता हूँ सर। आप लोग कल आ सकते हैं, कल क्लास को मैं बात करता हूँ। ठीक है, मैं बोलता हूँ।